It's June 20th, 2015, and this is your Fortean Slip news. I, by the way, have not been parading around as a black man for a while. Just a white guy.
Yep.
And I don't have tits.
You do have nipples, though, right?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Our first story
which brings me around to a tweet that the fabulous Joe Rogan said this past week, which is, we all start out female. That's why men have nipples. So identify with whatever the fuck you want.
Absolutely. From the SeattleTimes.com. Monsters and Men. It's a field manual that mobilizes Bigfoot seekers. Seattle author David George Gordon is divided on the question of whether Sasquatch is real, but his aim with this field manual is to get thousands of us out there looking for it. The author of the Sasquatch Seekers Field Manual will discuss his book at 7 p.m. Tuesday, June 23rd at Elliott Bay Book Company. That's at 1521 10th Avenue in Seattle if you're anywhere near there. A study in cryptozoology may seem a departure from the longtime publishers of guidebooks on more reality-based outdoor activities, but the Sasquatch Seekers Field Manual is a serious book intent on filling the Northwest woods with citizen scientists. Yeah, that's a good idea. To put an end to the question of whether the hairy giant exists. David George Gordon, the Seattle author of the Field Manual, writes that he is divided on the question of whether Sasquatch is for real. What he would like to see is several thousand people out looking for this primate that has walked through this.
What I'd like to see is one credible person out looking for fucking Bigfoot. That's what I'd like to see. One.
Only one. Mm-hmm. Walk through the imaginations and maybe the forests of the Pacific Northwest since Homo sapiens first set foot here. The several thousand seekers Gordon envisions should not be wild-eyed dreamers, hoaxers, or unprepared stumblers, unlike what we have now, over what could be in the definitive proof of an unrecorded primate species. There's been plenty of those already, and Gordon's history of the search for Sasquatch includes the usual suspects. They will be familiar to any reader who has dabbed in Sasquatch literature. The much scrutinized 1967 Patterson-Gimlin film of a Sasquatch, or someone in a monkey suit, John Burns, who is credited with popularizing the Sasquatch name, Ray Wallace and his Bigfoot footprints carved from wood. What has been missing in the search so far, Gordon argues, is careful gathering and presentation of evidence that Sasquatch walks the earth. Haven't you been saying that for a long time, Chris?
Yeah, but I don't want 1,000 fucking people out there. I just want fucking a few credible fucking people out there. I'd be happy. I'd be happy with a crack fucking team. The A team, if you will.
Right. Gordon's book is an effort to correct this. His manual explains what it takes for the International Commission on Zoological Nomenclature to recognize a new species. Lack of a type specimen has been the deal breaker for Sasquatch.
I would be willing to make an exception for Manimal.
Manimal. I used to watch that show. That was a good show.
See?
Loved it.
I make a reference like Manimal, and you're like, hey, I fucking remember that.
Manimal was good.
I talk about The Exorcist. Something in The Exorcist. And you're like, huh? What?
Manimal, pretty obscure show from what, the 80s? And I know I know about that.
Fucking pretty obscure fucking show. It is an obscure fucking show from the 80s.
The Exorcist, which is like the all-time, most popular, probably horror flick ever, and I haven't seen it. A Sasquatch, alive or dead, would seal the deal, but even a skull or partial skeleton would be a foot in the door, so to speak, toward recognition from the science community. The effort to prove or disprove, you can't disprove the existence of Sasquatch, can best go forward if those gathering evidence play by the rules of science, says Gordon. So he gives instructions on how to keep reliable field notes, how to best organize search parties, how to properly keep hair and scat samples. He recommends the best materials and methods for making casts of footprints, and he discusses the difficulty of gathering valid video and audio evidence in this time of common digital media manipulations.
I think you and Dax Rushlow should team up and both change your name to Simon.
Why would we do that?
So then you could be Simon and Simon, the Sasquatch hunters.
Okay. I used to watch Simon and Simon, too.
Fucking asshole.
And our next story from PennLive.com. We haven't done one of these in a while, Chris.
Uh-oh.
Chupacabra sightings in Pennsylvania.
Oh.
There have been reports, believe it or not. Monsters of Pennsylvania. Meet Pennsylvania's Loch Ness Monster, the Raystown Ray Monsters of Pennsylvania. I messed up.
What?
I don't know. When I copied and pasted this story, you know how sometimes you get like all sorts of other things in there.
You forgot to edit.
I forgot to edit this particular one. The Chupacabra, here we go, which originated it's just like, normal for me. Yeah. The Chupacabra, which
just
originated...
like Walter Cronkite.
Or I've been compared to Ricky Gervais, believe it or not.
That is a fucking farce and a fallacy.
But Graham says...
No,
anyway.
No.
The Chupacabra, which originated as an undiscovered animal of legend and lore in Puerto Rico in the mid-90s, and then spread into South America, Mexico, and Texas.
Or the creature from species.
Creature from what?
Species.
Oh, yes. Reportedly arrived in Pennsylvania in the past few years. Along the way, the description of the animal has changed dramatically. Really. In Puerto Rico, the Chupacabra is a reptilian creature with scaly gray skin and sharp quills along its back. It stands about 3 to 4 feet tall on its hind legs and hops about similar to the motion of a kangaroo. In North America, including the rare Pennsylvania Chupacabra, the rare Pennsylvania Chupacabra, it's more of a hairless wild canine. It has an oversized head, particularly around the jaws, and pronounced bony ridge along its spine. That transformation appears to have coincided with a growing interest in the creature by monster hunting shows on television. Camera operators on the shows seem much more able to film wild dogs and coyotes with mange that could be misinterpreted as something else, maybe a Chupacabra. Consensus on the few reports in Pennsylvania, including one in Dauphin County in 2010, has uniformly determined the Keystone Chupacabra to have been dogs, foxes, coyotes, and even small bears with severe cases of mange. It's already proven, but it's not a Chupacabra, said Eric Altman, who specializes in Bigfoot investigation, but interviews experts in all areas of cryptozoology and the paranormal for his Beyond the Edge podcast and radio show. He agrees with the canines with mange assessment. In its move to the mainland, the unconfirmed beast with the name that translates into goat sucker reportedly continued its habit of killing livestock to drain them of their blood.
Goat sucker.
However, yeah, I love that name. However, Puerto Rico or mainland, the Chupacabra appears to be among the least likely of the cryptids. A 5-year investigation for the 2011 book Tracking the Chupacabra led Benjamin Radford to conclude that the species' original 1995 report was based on the creature's sill in the science fiction film. Say it, Chris?
Species.
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 Mm-hmm.
Species.
Species.
Michael Madsen.
I agree. I think it is from the film Species. And our final story of the day, Inquisitor.
If I've been called in, honey.
Inquisitor.com. A cloaked UFO or HARP. Mysterious lights in the sky over Greenwood, Indiana. A witness reported sighting on June 12, 2015, of strange lights in the clouds while out riding his bicycle. The appearance of the lights in the clouds was so unusual that he pulled over and pulled out his phone and began filming.
I thought he pulled something else out.
Yeah. Well, that was later. The witness concluded, that the phenomenon was the effect of undisclosed HARP weather manipulation experiments. I don't know how he can conclude that, but whatever.
You can conclude whatever you want, Steve.
Right.
This is America. Just conclude it.
He says, I had no idea what it was until I did some research when I got home and found out that it's called HARP, a government research program. Take a closer look at the beginning of the video, right when the beam disappears for a second. It moves part of the clouds upwards, then comes back. HARP stands for High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program, funded by the U.S. military and the Defense Advanced Research Projects. Conspiracy theorists believe that HARP has conducted clandestine weather manipulation experiments that trigger freak weather phenomena, including drought, hurricanes, and other natural disasters such as earthquakes. But UFO sightings dailies. Oh, Scott Waring. Scott Waring again?
It's the end of the world, Steve.
This guy thinks it was a cloaked UFO. Of course he does.
It's the end
having
of the
some
world.
fun.
Cloaked UFOs,
having some fun at the top
harp
of the clouds.
sounds, fucking trumpets. It's the end of the world, Steve.
Yeah, I think it is. He observed that the light seems to be curved around a disk at the top of the cloud and suggests that the cloaked UFO was accidentally uncloaked by the sunset, because that happens apparently.
All the time.
UFO cloak. Yes. Well, it's like the shining the light on the portal with the Bigfoot, you know. The sunset apparently uncloaks UFOs.
For the record, I did a Monster Quest Bigfoot marathon last night as I went to sleep.
Okay.
I'm just saying that for the record.
Oh, there's no more to that story?
No,
It's just
there's
you
nothing
did
else to that
marathon.
story. I didn't jerk off while I was fucking watching it. I didn't, I just went to sleep, Steve.
Well, I've seen them so many times they put me to sleep as well. So the UFO cloak bends light 180 degrees around it, so below it, it appears invisible. When the sun is at a 90 degree angle, this now makes one side of the UFO visible. However,
you have to take a
scientists
class to understand this shit?
I think so. I don't know what kind of class you would take, but I think you must have to, because it sounds sciencey, right?
It does sound a little sciencey, Steve.
Yeah.
I think cloaking, there's got to be some, at this point, there are so many experts on cloaking. We should have some documentation and a class.
Yes. I think you should, because I think the real thing going on here is that if we can't explain something, we can't find evidence of it, we just claim that it cloaks and we're good to go. I think that's the real thing. But however, scientists who have viewed the video and similar videos being uploaded to YouTube by amateur photographers said the phenomenon of dancing storm clouds and other similar shifting light effects in the clouds is not linked with HARP or UFOs. Go figure. The phenomenon, according to meteorologists, is linked to storm clouds known as cumulonimbus clouds.
Cumulonimbus.
I love that word. These dancing patches of brightness appear to be caused by the cloud's charged water particles moving around in response to shifting electric fields as lightning strikes within the cloud below. However, scientists admit that more research remains to be done to elucidate. Elucidate? Is that a word?
I don't know, Steve. We'll go with that. You're such a great news reader. That
I'm going to have to. Yeah, I know.
We're just going to go with that.
This is how Ricky Gervais started.
Reading the news?
Well, no, with his own web show, I think. Well, this isn't even my own web show. This is our show or whatever. But anyway, you can read more about that at the Inquisitor. I believe it's HARP because, why not? That's the news, Chris.
Steve, thank you.
I know. That was a wonderful reading of the news this time.
Maybe.
Never.